Killings by police are undercounted by more than half, new study says. More than half of police killings in the United States over the past 40 years have been mislabeled, according to a new study, leading to a stark undercount of deaths at the hands of officers and a lopsided perception of what experts say is a public health crisis. Researchers from the University of Washington found that from 1980 to 2019, more than 55% of 31,000 deaths attributed to police violence were assigned other causes in official federal death data. Black men are killed by police at disproportionately high rates, and their deaths are mislabeled at a higher rate than any other race, according to the study, which was published Thursday in Lancet, a peer-reviewed medical journal. The study underscores a grim reality. Despite years of scrutiny, criticism, protests, and calls for reform, no government agency tracks how often law enforcement officers in America kill people. Since 2015, the Washington Post has been counting how often on-duty police officers shoot and kill people. But there is no comprehensive federal attempt to keep track of these deaths or other uses of force by law enforcement, including chokeholds and non-fatal shootings. One of the study's authors called for the deaths poorly cataloged and preventable, and an expert said the lack of meaningful tracking of these deaths underscores the deep rootedness of systematic racism. High-profile police killings over the past several years, such as that of George Floyd in May 2020, have led to nationwide calls for police reform and examination of why Black men are disproportionately killed during police encounters. But until now, this study authors say that the true scope of police killings has largely been unknown. Police and a medical examiner initially attributed Floyd's death to drug use and underlying conditions, despite a bystander video showing former police officer Derek Chauvin kneeling on Floyd's neck and back for more than 9 minutes. Chauvin was found guilty of a murder and manslaughter in April. The study compared decades of data from national vital statistics systems which track births and deaths to 3 databases that track police violence, fatal encounters, mapping police violence, and the Guardian's The Counted. The databases shift through the news reports and public records for instances of people killed during police encounters. Mohsen Navi, the study's senior author, told the Post that it's critical to look beyond the incomplete data provided by the government agencies. Here, the role of the media is very important, he said. If we didn't have the media, we wouldn't have an open source of data. Noting the striking discrepancies between the study's findings and the government's data, the authors call for public health officials and researchers to swiftly adopt open source data collection initiatives to provide accurate estimates and advocate for policy changes to address this long neglected public health crisis. Researchers identified places where misclassification of death often occurred, noting that medical examiners or coroners who must fill out the cause of death when there is suspicion of foul play, including police violence, can be embedded in or work for police departments. If the medical examiner, coroner, or other certifier fails to indicate police involvement in the cause of death on the death certificate, the incident could be misclassified. And I'm here to say that they're doing it on purpose. The study underscores how deeply enmeshed systematic racism is in different aspects of life, including health, said Edwin G. Lindo, Assistant Dean for Social and Health Justice at the University School of Washington of Medicine. We have to really sit back and say, what does this mean? The critical race theory scholar told the Post, in my mind, there is a deep-seated undercurrent systematic racism to the point that a medical examiner doesn't have to declare that they're racist. The practices are already showing, and the racism is occurring, not just during the encounter itself, but even after the individual has passed away. There are still acts of racism to hide the murder or the killing that occurred, he said. The study's author said forensic pathologists should be independent from law enforcement to avoid incorrectly identifying the cause of death due to the outside pressures. They also said the experts should be offered whistleblower protection so they can fully investigate police violence. We need the government and the policymakers to fix this conflict of interest because violence is a public health crisis, Navi said. Researchers found that Black people were 3.5 times more likely than white people to be killed by police. And Latinos and Native Americans also face higher rates of fatal violence at the hands of the law enforcement. Notice they did not say a number like they did with Black people. I just want you to notice that. Okay. About 1 in every 1,000 Black men in the United States is killed by police, the study found. They didn't say 1 in every Latino man, nor did they say 1 in every Native American man. They said 1 in every Black. Systemic and direct racism manifests in laws and policies as well as personal implicit biases, results in Black, Indigenous, and Hispanic Americans being the target of police violence, it read. Lindo said, the number of people dying at the hands of police highlights how this violence is a major public health problem. Underreporting also most dramatically affected Black people, the study found, with nearly 60% of deaths misclassified. Men were more than 20 times more likely to be killed than women. In 2019, the study said that more than twice as many men died from police encounters than from testicular cancer. This is important because it kills more than some important disease, and it is preventable. Misclassification rates varied broadly from state to state, with researchers finding Oklahoma incorrectly labeled more than 83% of deaths by police, Wyoming more than 79%, and Alabama, Louisiana, and Nebraska all over 72%. Maryland had the fewest estimated misclassified police killings at around 16%. I guess they don't care. They just tell the truth. They're like, yeah, we killing you and we don't care, because it's not that they're not doing it. Oklahoma and Arizona and Alaska and the District of Columbia had the highest rates of police killings, according to the study. After police in Ferguson, Missouri killed Michael Brown in 2014, a post-investigation found that the FBI undercounted police shootings by more than half. Most U.S. police departments have declined to share data with the national use of fourth data collection since its launch in 2019, despite a presidential order and other pressure. So let me tell you something. Let me ask you something. How do you defy a presidential order and still be free? No one's getting locked up. Nothing is happening. They just defy a presidential order. So you see how far these presidential orders go for Black people. Lindo said the underreporting is an act of dehumanization, the death of these communities. Obscuring the actual figures of deaths from police violence compounds mistrust in the government and could also lead to greater impunity for officers, Lindo says, and that is the point. With such discrepancies in how police deaths are reported, Lindo said the study is primed to generate attention. Yet more than a rude awakening, the professor said the findings should catalyze action. What the study doesn't speak to, and what we need to focus on, is that the underreporting doesn't necessarily mean the behavior of the police brutality changes immediately, he said. And so while, yes, we focus on how severe this underreporting is, we also have to identify the tactics to make sure that this police violence no longer exists. No, we need to punish the perpetrators of the police violence. They need the death penalty for the police that murder innocent Black people.